Swayam Prabha. Digital India. Educated India.
Welcome dear students once again to our NPTEL MOOC module on health economics. We are covering the unit on demand for health with a focus on Grossman model. We have already discussed in the previous lecture on Grossman model, hence our this model is on Grossman model 2. As you remember, in the first lecture we discussed about health as a consumption good as emphasized by Grossman, and how the person used to have a habit in allocating its resources, allocating her resources either on normal commodities for consumption purposes or on the health related commodities. Hence, we may define the consumption may be good or may be bad. But in the second rule of Grossman emphasize the health as an input for production, as a productive time. Okay. So, we will be explaining this how far this is going to be productive time. Okay. And it depends on whether the person is actually carrying a good health, and every additional unit of good health may be attaching with diminishing returns, or every sick time with an extra good time. If you get it, that might be substantially increasing your productive hours and substantially decreases in sick time. We will discuss all sort of things. Hence, if you remember in the previous lecture, I mentioned that productive hours is defined through TP, and that is basically is nothing but T for work time, T for playing time, leisure time, okay, and T for health. All right. And there are diminishing marginal returns to productive time from health. I mentioned specifically this is of theta stands for 24 hours, this P stands for productive hours, okay. H stands for health, and this stands for playing, time for playing or time for leisure related activities, this for work. Okay. So, here is the one that is illness abundance curve. We have mentioned that how it is actually inversely proportional. If you are little confused with this line, please refer to my discussion in the previous lecture. We have a trade off between health and time for sickness, okay. And if you have the allocation and of these two, you have a maximum of 24 hours. Out of 24 hours, the sick time and productive time, the sick time and productive time is important. Health, we have mentioned that health is considered to be an allocation of your time for productive purposes. Hence, Grossman defined through illness abundance curve. And we know that minimum health is required. It is not going to be starting from the vertical axis or from the zero gradient. It should start from a minimum level. If the minimum level of health is not attended, then there is no question of productive hours. Once the minimum hours is not reached, the person is considered to be dead. Hence, Grossman defined what is called economic definition of death, where there is no productive time left and the person cannot generate any more health. Okay. Hence, there is a trade off. Illness abundance curve is actually downward sloping and inversely proportional. The three roles of health as per Grossman: for health as a consumption good, health as an input for production, and health as an investment as capital. Okay. In terms of consumption, we already discussed, it contributes directly to the individual utility function in each period. Being healthy is valuable in and of itself. Input into production, it generates productive time, that is TP, which is useful for producing even more of H and X. And the third will be emphasizing on capital for sure, but at this moment just clarifying how three roles are defined. Unlike other good, it endures, health endures from period to period. It can accumulate or depreciate over time. So, improvement in health today can lead to better health tomorrow. This will be discussed in our multi-period setting. In the till this time we are actually discussing on single period analysis. Okay, since investment is carried forward with your past history of health as a health capital, hence the third rule will be emphasizing with the multi-period setting analysis. Okay. So, another concept is called optimal day. What is called optimal level of H and X in any given period depends on the decision that we are taking for a lifetime, not just for a single period. In the following slides, we will discuss this optimization in one period setting followed by multi-period optimization. So, single period optimization as well as multi-period optimization will be discussed subsequently. Hence, we require production possibility frontier for X and H. We have already started discussing budget constraint, okay, for a single period setting. Now, let us discuss what is our budget, what is your production possibility frontier. What is an PPF, production possibility frontier? We used to read in microeconomics theory. Okay. Basically, how a country is optimally using its endowment or resources to produce the maximum level of X and Y commodities. Okay. And that is contrasting to a single production function. When you are taking labor and it is a function of or quantity is a function of labor or capital, that's basically we used to discuss isoquant etc. That might be convex to the origin, maybe straight line, okay, maybe L shape etc. These discussion, if you remember, used to make it microeconomics theory. Okay. Where in production function the optimal use of resources or endowments important. Hence, we discussed for the production possibility frontier to be concave to the origin in general, when you have actually used your resources effectively and there is no excess capacity, okay, and that might be also straight line depending upon the context. If you revisit your microeconomics theory, I am sure you can understand. There occurs in increasing opportunity cost to produce any extra additional unit of production. Whereas, in the typical function, we used to go by the isoquant and its use in production function and its optimization. Okay. So, we are not discussing much on this. I will clarify how the commodities and its production possibility frontier and the health as a commodity and its production possibility frontier. Hence, production possibility set traces out the possible combination of H and X that are attainable given individual's budget and time constraint. In this context, we are actually specifying about individual budget and time constraint, and its production possibility frontier is used. The edge or frontier of this set is called the production possibility frontier. In the other next subsequent slides, we will explore PPF for H and X in standard setting and PPF for H and X in Grossman's model, emphasizing X and H. This is what is called standard model of PPF. How the resources as per the country's budget and the country's optimal allocation, similarly individual allocation is also projected in a concave function. Resources allocated to one of H or X means less resources for X or H. There is inverse relationship between these two. Okay. Whereas, in a standard one we have highlighted in the dotted line, that is basically resource allocation on H compromise with resource allocation of X, there is a clear trade-off. And wherever in Grossman's framework of health and X, we have to restrict to a minimum of H minimum. Okay, there only our optimal resource allocation is possible, and hence Grossman defined this as our production possibility frontier, and reaches at the maximum level when other commodities actually allocation time is 0 and consumption is 0. And why it starts from this point, from this point at 0, only because H minimum should have been attended for an individual, okay, in order to raise more resources generated for other consumption or even healthier products. Hence the standard model we are rejecting as per Grossman's theory. Okay. Individuals with low H will have fewer resources to produce any X at all, that is 0X. Now we are discussing some of the points to clarify further. At point A, let it be, that is basically H minimum. Okay. There is actually no productive time. So TP is actually no productive time, and hence no other goods. At this moment, no other goods. Point A. At point B, we H is greater than that of H minimum. Okay. The H corresponding to this, we have a point H that will be of course greater than this. The person is relatively healthier. Even small improvement in H yields large change in rise in productivity or productive time and even X. So that's attached with increasing returns to a particular factor, and that therefore we call it as free lunch, where both has a positive direction, both H increases as well as X increases. Okay. Whereas once the person reaches as point C, we are actually maximizing our X possible. So maximum X is possible. At point D, clearly we have started trading off between the allocation of H and X. We have started allocating more on X, and beyond that those X units are not going to add more X, rather it will be declining or X. We are actually referring to this as a declining portion. Hence we call this as trade-off zone as per Grossman's idea. So this is clearly mentioned, free lunch zone and trade-off zone. How does an individual choose the optimal mix of H and X? Of course, it is quite sure that when the person is growing in terms of both, so we are not going to be restricted till this point. So we are not going to be optimally allocating our resources in the free lunch zone. When in trade-off zone, since we are actually compromising between our satisfaction with both X and H, we have to find out a point in this region from this to this, and that has to be considered to be optimal day or optimal allocation. There is no optimal point in free lunch zone. However, the trade-off zone, that is C to E, has a possibility. Free lunch zone, once again both H and X can be increased, hence are positive inputs in terms of utility. However, in allocations in A to C, allocation in A to C do not take advantage of all opportunities and leave free H and X. Now we are left with this portion. Optimal allocation lies in trade-off zone. Exact allocation depends on his taste for health and other goods. So we need to map, to find out the optimal position. It depends upon our utility map or indifference function or indifference map. Wherever it is actually reaching a point, optimal allocation lies on a point D on which indifference curve touches the PPF. Okay, individual trade-off health with consumption of other goods. As per the prediction of Grossman prediction of Grossman model, While optimizing utility, people choose a combination of health and other goods, leading to less H maximum. Okay, so there will be combination. Hence, this is, since we have all possibilities C, D, E, all points on the PPF, therefore it is called exotic preferences. Okay, exotic preference function. What it indicates, if prefer only H, that means X is 0. Okay, so we will be allocating at point E, and that is possible when we have a vertical indifference curve, complete vertical indifference curve like this. So, indifference curve should be actually like this. Okay, this will be our IC. So, we are actually referring to this point. And if only prefer X, if prefer only X, that means we are selecting at point C, that means this is the point. We should have horizontal IC curve. So, note H is still H is positive in that case, H is positive in both cases, and H gives productive hours and with productive time. Alright, we can optimally allocate our resources accordingly. So, another argument is through labor leisure health improvement trade off. So, basically the total productive time increases with health with diminishing marginal returns. This is what is mentioned, productive time increases with health. However, there are diminishing returns, as I already mentioned, initial increases at an increasing rate, then they will be increasing at a diminishing rate. And in a 3-dimensional setup, you can understand on a space set of possible allocation is expected. How to select optimal level of TW, TH and TX in all 3 dimensions, we have discussed this. Hence, we can plot a indifference map in 3-dimensional structure, and an optimum possibility is derived. So, basically how it is derived, the point where indifference curve touches the productive time plane, the plane which you have highlighted in the triangular area in the space. Basically, this is the space wherever it is actually convex or touches is actually defining the productive time, the best option. This indifference curve is same as we selected in PPF function. So far we discussed about single time optimization function. Now we are discussing multi-period. We have to refer to the third rule of Grossman, emphasizing human capital as an investment. We know that health is a stock and decisions made in the past affect today. Decisions we make today will have implications in the future. Therefore, a full multi-period version of the Grossman model is required. So, in the next one we will discuss the third rule, emphasizing investment good through health, or health is an investment good. So, basically we need to question that how does an individual navigate the trade off between health, work and play over the entire lifespan. So, here is a function, we are continuing from the previous, emphasizing this. So, accordingly we will also clarify the third rule. Okay. So, here it is, we have a function, we derive utility out of so many things. Other aspect at point particular period we have discussed. Now, we are also, in addition to this, we are defining other time period 1 as against this. Okay. And we also refer to different other periods, successive periods, and count down the entire span of utility function of the individual. So, HT, the health level of health we have defined actually is ranging from 0 to omega, where XT we know that it should actually start with that particular period. It does not have a time horizon, we can start with a 0 period. Okay. Omega is actually the length of lifespan in different periods. So, consider a functional form here that we have mentioned, utility age is derived at the present period, in the next period, then next to next period, until omega period. Hence, it is a summation of all tth period with the utility of Tn coefficient of Tth times as with a function of its health and consumption of other goods. And the sigma varies from 0 1 and it is a ratio and discount, it is a basically discounted factor of your utility in the successive period. When you have composition of h and x, they will be discounting to your utility function, as you used to see in our function, optimization function or utility function. Hence, the third rule is defined accordingly. That is basically relates health and investment for a different periods. Health stores value from investment in previous periods, and health also depreciates from period to period. Let gamma be a depreciation rate. Okay. So, hence HT, which I have mentioned, we have also defined earlier, T minus 1 time for health, the stock of health in the T minus 1, the time allocation for this, and your market time period. Okay. And hence it is actually defining your health, total health, as a capital, and that can be also presented with this 1 minus gamma. When we say it is basically we gamma relates to your depreciation. So, depreciation of health plays a critical role in determining this function, the optimal level of health investment. Health stocks if increases, so that means the sick period etc. decreases, and hence your productive time or the monetary value of this is actually returns to investment in health, that increases. Hence, the returns to capital it's a function called we used to define marginal efficiency of labor or here at this moment marginal efficiency of health capital, and it actually is a inverse function. Rate of returns actually declines over time. Okay. So, MEC curves show how efficient each unit of health capital is in increasing lifetime utility. Highest returns to health, that means when individual is actually dying or reaching at a minimum health level. So, that is basically the returns we derive from minimum till the maximum of age. So, MEC curve we started from actually the minimum level till the maximum. MEC curve is downward sloping and reflects the diminishing marginal returns to health. We need to understand that even at age at minimum the rate of return is not infinite. So, it is actually not infinite, it has to be with a non-infinite point. Okay. So, the rate of return is not infinity. So, what is this all about? Let me again clarify. What is the cost of investing in age then? It is basically opportunity cost of foregone market investment opportunities, that is we have taken as R, or in Grossman chapters is R. Depreciation of health due to aging we have already mentioned as gamma. Okay. Hence, optimal investment in health depends on R and gamma. MEC curve shows the optimal health level associated with market price of health investment, that is basically R plus the depreciation rate. The basically at this price individual optimally chooses H star at which the marginal cost of health investment balances the marginal benefit of health investment. When this is occurring, then return to health is considered to be optimal. Okay. So, what are the applications then of this optimal allocation of resources? Grossman model is best known for providing economic explanation for two empirical health phenomena, that is better health among the educated one and declining health among the aging people. So, one is on education and its efficiency of producing health. So, socioeconomic status health gradient is basically what is this as explained. People with better education and wealth enjoy longer life expectancies in explanation in Grossman's model is that the gradient arises because the well educated are more efficient producers of health. The more educated persons gains more health stock for each unit of health investment. So, basically there is a shift of this MEC, marginal efficiency of capital or health capital, which you already mentioned as downward sloping, and that is basically due to the rate of returns. And if MEC H for high MEC H, if you are saying it is basically high school dropouts, and MEC C for college graduates, okay, and MEC increases because of education. Another one is declining because of the aging one, the health capital is a inverse function, or there will be regressive change with respect to age. Why health optimally deteriorates with age? Grossman predicts that it is too costly to stay forever young. There are even biological reasons. Organs, health as in health assets diminishes over time, and diminishing rate is increases with age. Okay. So, basically the depreciation rate, that is gamma, increases with age, and in the figure we have mentioned that as individual ages, depreciation rate of health increases from gamma 0 to gamma 1, okay, and the minimum of age attains, and hence the depreciation rate accordingly followed and presented in this MEC curve. Okay. Why health optimally deteriorates with age is actually mentioned. So, in the conclusion, we need to mention that we discuss about the cost of health that rises with age if depreciation rate on stock of health rises over life cycle, and the cost of health falls with education if more educated people are more efficient producers of health. Demand for a demand curve of health slopes downward due to diminishing marginal productivity of health capital. So, here are our readings for your ready reference or for your ready understanding. Here is our like this used to refer largely. Grossman you can also follow the original explanations we have mentioned in our slides. So, it will be good if you read, and I am sure a number of questions are expected from this chapter in your assignment as well as final exam. Then what is there in our next lecture? We will actually discuss on demand for health, and we will also discuss what are their policy implications. Okay. So, thank you after listening these two consecutive lectures, and I hope demand for health is well set and clarified, and especially the Grossman model is very important. I think I should close here. Thank you.